What happens when one of the biggest Twitch streamers doubles down on his most controversial takes and ends up getting called out by the Young Turks themselves? Because that's exactly what just happened with Asmongold. It all started when Asmongold reacted to clips of protesters throwing rocks at police officers and dropped one of his hardest takes yet.
I don't know. I think anybody who's going around and trying to hit police officers or anything like that, there's no reason why anybody should be supporting that. I think they should use actual ammo. And if anybody throws a rock or tries to harm one of the police officers, I think they should just use deadly force to stop it from happening. There's no reason why anybody should be putting up with that. And it's disgusting, honestly, that there's so many people that are okay with it.
It was clear Asmongold wasn't mincing words. He believed throwing rocks was deadly force and should be met with deadly force. And this wasn't the first time he'd taken such a hardline stance. Months earlier, he'd said this about protesters blocking roads.
Or they crowd your car. If people are trying to actively obstruct you from driving on a public road and they're doing it because they think they can get together and bully you into not driving, I think you should totally be justified to run them over. Absolutely. Roads are for cars, not for people. Why is it that in a polite society we should be expected to put up with violent people that try to obstruct our movement and shut down roads for whatever reasons they seem are necessary? Why should we do that? Why should we live in a world where that's acceptable? I don't think we should.
To him, blocking roads wasn't civil disobedience, it was violence. Then he went even further, suggesting protesters should be arrested, charged with felonies, and lose their right to vote.
I just wonder if even the military can save a place like Deep Blue Portland, as over in Chicago.
They absolutely can. The way that you do it is you take all of these people, you arrest all of them, you charge them with felonies, you change the federal law so people with felonies can't vote in elections, and then you effectively disenfranchise them out of the voting system. That way, nobody has to deal with them anymore. And if they have a problem with that and they cause issues, then you put them in prison and you force them to work. There you go. Problem solved.
It was the kind of quote that guaranteed blowback, and it didn't take long. Hasan's uncle, Cenk Uygur, from the Young Turks, dedicated a full segment to calling Asmongold out, mocking his views.
Now this brother comes along. I don't know who Assman is. People say maybe that he's got a following, but I've never heard of him, right? And his brother and his co-conspirator Jägermeister or whatever, right? But this guy's talking about, oh yeah, run over protesters. I don't mind it, he said. So you don't mind extreme violence, running over somebody with a car, okay? But you know what? Why don't we instead arrest them for exercising one of the most fundamental American rights, freedom of speech? The one, remember, that you guys all pretended you were in favor of? I know some of them meant it, but apparently a lot of them, including Assman and Jägermeister, didn't mean it. They thought, oh, freedom of speech for me, to say that maybe you should be or be made my slave. My freedom of speech, good. And by the way, I wouldn't cancel that. I don't mind him saying the terrible things that he says. Now we know who he is.
Cenk argued that Asmongold's rhetoric was anti-American and hypocritical. Pretending to defend free speech while endorsing violence against people who use it, he continued,
I'm not afraid that the majority of Americans are going to look at that and go, oh yeah, well, I think we should, instead of having freedom of speech, if anyone exercises freedom of speech in a way that I don't like politically, we should arrest them, take away all their rights, make sure they can't vote, and then turn them into slaves. No, 98% of Americans are going to be against that. But Assman thinks that's a great idea. So he's like, oh yeah, I'm for freedom of speech, unless it's left-wingers. How dare they protest our government? Let's take away all their rights. Did you see what he said? Make sure they can't ever vote again. And I don't know if his followers were like, what an idiot. We said freedom of speech, dumbass. Or if they're like, yeah, we hate freedom of speech now that we're in charge. Let's turn them into slaves. Are 13 people watching that show? Who would like that kind of monstrously un-American piece of crap like that, who doesn't believe in America at all?
Cenk didn't hold back, calling the take monstrously un-American and accusing Asmongold of promoting slave labor. Meanwhile, Tectone chimed in, joking that Hasan might have made a boss call to his uncle Cenk to go after Asmongold. Whether that is true or not, guess we will never know. Asmongold responded directly to Cenk, doubling down on his previous takes.
This guy's talking about, oh yeah, run over protesters. I don't mind it, he said.
Yes.
So you don't mind extreme violence, running over somebody with a car, okay?
Well, yeah, if they block your road, yeah, absolutely. If they don't let you try to get by and they crowd your car, I think you absolutely should be able to run them over. And you can see how, and this is what I think is very funny about this, is that people like this always like misrepresenting. This is why I don't debate with people. It's because they're just liars. Like, you can't debate and argue and, have a conversation with a person whenever they're not operating on the same wavelength as you are. So when you have somebody like Jank who's saying like, oh, well, you know, you're just trying to run over protesters, etc., you're not even trying to engage with the conversation. You're not even trying to understand the point of view that I'm putting forward. You're intentionally misunderstanding it in order to make an argument, which is like, that's fine. You want to do that, go ahead and do that. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to take it seriously, okay? Moving goalposts, I clearly was not talking about any protester. Why would I think that? I mean, like, what is the logic here?
He accused Schenk of deliberately misrepresenting his words, saying critics weren't engaging in good faith. Then he pushed even harder.
Well, I mean, I don't know why this is such a contentious topic. Like, wouldn't it be good if we could have prisoners that are in jail and they're fucking in prison for 20 years doing some work so we can save money? How is this even a debate? Like, we used to do this for years. Like, why are we even debating this at all? It's obviously a good idea. What are we even talking about?
Then he shared his views on using deadly force on protesters.
And this is again what my perspective is, I think that if you initiate deadly force against somebody, that person should be allowed to respond with deadly force against you. So I view throwing a rock at a person as deadly force. And so because a police officer is a person, I think that if you throw a rock at a police officer should be able to respond with deadly force by shooting you. That's my logic. That's my reasoning. And that's also Florida's logic and Florida's reasoning. That's exactly what Florida does. So if you're mad at me for saying this, that's totally okay. But you also have to understand that there is an entire state in our country that has the exact same viewpoint on this than I do. Don't try to act like I'm some extreme radical or some crazy person when there are states with millions of people in it that agree with this. And I think that most people agree with this too.
And finally, he tied it all together with his view on voting rights.
And, you know, ask yourself the question for this. Do you want a violent political extremist that's trying to throw rocks and attack people be the person who is deciding the fate for the country? I don't. And I'm so sick of this fake reality that we have to pretend to live in that it's actually a good thing that every moron and his mother can vote on things. This is a huge problem.
So what do you think? Did Asmongold make fair points? Or did he go too far with his takes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates. Until next time, stay tuned and stay fabulous.